one game away. Blow up. We're playing for something, man. We're playing for something. This gotta mean something to you. It gotta mean something. Everything you got. Let's finish this.
Do it, fellas.
Let's go.
Let's do it, fellas.
Finish 2-3. 1, 2, 3. Finish.
Look, I'm through with this false persona. I can't do the Mr. Goody two-shoe shit any longer. Y'all check y'all hoes at the door while I'm putting it on her. Feel less responsible for my actions when I say I'm on the edge and these niggas just keep harassing. Killing people I love, man, this shit just a crime of passion. I know this isn't me, boy, stop asking me what didn't happen. I've been talking to my demons, y'all really thought I was capping. Now y'all scared cause you found that I'm really about all the action. Don't do the pretend shit, all of my problems for instance. Tugging the cheek over tension, nice that we can barely mention. I would say I moved on, but I know that shit hard to convince it. I sleep at ease when she pull up like a hardy convention. Never been harder to fit in. I know niggas, no pot to piss in. Needing assistance. Also, no niggas ran plays with pistons. Both all wisdom. I sleep in silence, knowing everything good with the profit. I checked the summary last month, made 11 deposits. Everything is big up on the boy, feel like Christopher Wallace. Strong arm the game, who gon' stop him? That nigga too brolic. I've had enough of they twisted logic, that shit retarded. I question everything. I made the wrong choice between a paddock or a wedding ring. Hope you catching everything. They get goosebumps when I spit like when a net is sing.
I feel so bad for Dallas Cowboy fans. I feel bad for the team. I'm not even a Cowboys fan, and obviously I picked the Niners to win this game, but if you listen to the show where I made my pick, I said I think Dallas can win this game if they played it. They have everything they need to beat the Niners, and I know the Niners look unbeatable. They are not. They looked like this a couple years ago, and they look like this to start. I mean, the defense don't look like this the majority of the year, but I pay attention to these games. It's a certain type of way you can beat this Niners team. They're not unbeatable. The Dallas Cowboys can beat this team, but Dak Prescott, my God, just had probably one of his worst games of the season. It's probably the worst game considering what was at stake, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. I appreciate y'all for joining me on another episode of Kicking It with Saint. Listen, the Baseball Hall of Fame is a joke. I know I don't usually start with baseball, but baseball is around the corner. I love baseball. I like watching it. Baseball Hall of Fame is a joke. I just realized Andrew Jones is not a Hall of Famer. He should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. 400 plus home runs, 10 plus gold gloves, the best center field defender of all time, more than likely. Not a Hall of Famer. Barry Bonds is the greatest player to ever play. Not a Hall of Famer. He had touched, you know how many home runs he hit before he touched the needle? Mind you, he never tested positive. It's absolutely insane. I love Big Papi. Big Papi said himself, Barry Bonds the greatest player of all time. How he cannot, and then you got the Roger Clemens of the world. You got all these dudes, and you know, you talk about old steroids, bro. The commissioner turned a blind eye to steroids to help bring the game back to life. The dudes who was juicing wasn't just juicing themselves. They was juicing the ratings and juicing MLB back into the public eye. They should not be punished all these years later when you didn't punish them in the time it was happening. You cannot benefit off of these dudes and then try to throw them under the carpet and throw them under the rug after they did what they did for this game. Because you're not in the position you in if not for them dudes taking those hits that they took. I understand they were cheating. Do you know baseball has been cheating its damn near its entirety? Black dudes couldn't play before. We ain't even got to go through the whole Jackie Robinson saga of baseball. People act as if baseball is some clean sport. It's not. To me, the ugliest thing that's happening in the sport now is the fact that they hold dudes out of the Hall of Fame. Why are you so addicted to having the smallest Hall of Fame? That makes absolutely no sense. I prefer to have sports put too many people into the Hall of Fame rather than not put enough people in the Hall. What is going to a Hall of Fame thing with only two dudes entering the Hall of Fame? What kind of shit is that? And then you got so many dudes who was legends of the game who you cannot tell the story of baseball without mentioning these dudes, and they not in the Hall. Alex Rodriguez not in the Hall of Fame, bruh. Like, to me, the Baseball Hall of Fame is a joke. It's a joke. The fact that so many dudes that put so much into this game, that contributed to baseball in the biggest ways, can now be held responsible for off the field things or steroids and things like that is so ignorant to me. Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player of all time. That is a consensus thing. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Andrew Jones should be in the Hall of Fame. It's so many other dudes that should be in the Hall of Fame that's not in the Hall of Fame. Jimmy Rollins didn't get into the Hall of Fame. And listen, I know I'm a Philly fan, so it could be a bias in me. Jimmy Rollins is a Hall of Famer. Ryan Howard to me is a Hall of Famer. Chase Utley is a Hall of Fame. Like, bro, the amount of people that they keep out of the Hall of Fame is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Like, Manny Ramirez is a Hall of Famer. Like, I hate the Baseball Hall of Fame, bro. I really do. They take themselves way too serious, bro. They take way too serious. Like, you got generational talents who carried years of baseball on their shoulders, and they can't get a sniff it up, man. Baseball Hall of Fame is a joke, but we're not here to talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame. We are here to talk about the end of the divisional rounds. We have come to our conclusion on the divisional rounds, and I thought I was going to break this video up into two different videos. I'm not. I'm talking about the two games in this video, both of the games that happened on Sunday. The Cowboys lose to San Francisco and Santa Clara. And the Bengals, they mollywopped the Bills in Buffalo, which is something I also predicted would happen. So I got both of my predictions right this week. And I hate coming on here having to give the Bengals credit because I'm a Ravens fan, but I'm a football fan also, so I don't mind giving credit where it's due. But I'll talk about the Bengals when I get to them. And I haven't even decided if I'm really going to do two teams in this video or if I'm going to give the Bengals their own separate video, because I'm leaning towards giving them their own video. But we'll see how long the show goes when I'm talking about the Cowboys. But getting to the Cowboys, what a devastating loss. I mean, you couldn't ask the defense to play any better. And at the end of the game, where the defense wasn't as stout as it had played throughout the entirety of the game, like the first three quarters, I couldn't even put that on the defense, because you got to remember, they had like what, 2 extra possessions because of interceptions by Dak. Not even good interceptions. Like Dak throwing these balls right to the defenders. Neither his 2 interceptions. And I said this earlier, like a couple weeks ago. I don't have a problem with the interceptions. I have a problem with the interceptions that are actually his fault. Some of these interceptions, receivers is just not catching the ball, and it's bouncing off of them and going to. But the interceptions that are Dak's fault are just bad interceptions. He throwing them right into defensive meeting rooms. It's like when I watch Tyler Huntley sometimes, and anytime he throw it down the field, it's like, yo, where was he throwing this to? Because these shits is going right to the defenders. That's how Dak Prescott was tonight. And it's unfortunate that this is how the season ends for the Cowboys, because there's so much talent on this Cowboys team. Like, this is a team littered with talent. And the defensive side of the ball for the Cowboys, they probably couldn't have pitched a better game tonight. To hold the San Francisco 49ers to this low points, to stifle their offense for the majority of this game. I don't know if another defense plays a better game against this team. But for the Cowboys, every single chance they got to capitalize on something, the offense just couldn't get it done. You start one of the drives with a great kick return, you still end that drive with no points. CeeDee Lamb start one of the drive with a big catch down the field, you end that drive with no points. You get you stop the 49ers on big plays. You walk away with, I think, 3 points from one of those drives, but nothing else. The fact that the Cowboys could not get into the end zone, and then one of the drives that ended with a field goal for them could have ended in an interception, because Dak nearly threw it away in the end zone again, because it bobbed off of one dude and almost landed in another defender's hand. So with Dak being so erratic this game, and the worst parts of his game showing up in the biggest game of their season, I could see how Cowboy fans, and listen, I'm not trying to defend Dak on this one. I do think this was a loss that you could firmly put on Dak's shoulders, because I just don't know how the defense for the Cowboys could have pitched a better game. They got to Purdy. They stifled the run game. They didn't let receivers just go crazy on them all day like the team did. And while they did pick up some penalties, I kind of believe that it was a specific drive in the second half, or maybe it was in the first, where to me the 49ers got bailed out a couple times on bad calls by the refs. It was one play down the field. Or was that in the other game? No. Yeah, that was the other game. But it was a couple plays in this game where I thought Dallas, you could have held that flag. Like, you didn't have to throw those flags. And even with that happening, I think the Cowboys defense played a phenomenal game. To me, Dak, and then the Cowboys get the stop they need to make it a 7-point game towards the end of this game. You get the ball back to Dak, they go 3 and out. Not only do they go 3 and out, the first throw of the drive is nearly a pick six. And I know some people will be like, well, the 49ers don't get the 3 points to make it a 7-point game if Diggs catch that interception. But those was 2 bobbles that landed in his hand. He didn't expect that to come. Now, it's easy to say he should have caught it because the ball ended up in his hands, but he wasn't prepared for that. So I can understand why he dropped that. And I'm not blaming the defense for this loss. It just can't happen. I watched this entire game. The defense played more than good enough to win this game. Point blank, period. You got to take their worst moments of the night, their best moments of the night. What do you got in between? They played more than good enough to win this game for Dallas. You take those 2 interceptions and get 3 points off of both of them, you win the game. You get a touchdown and 3 points off of one of them, you win the game. But 2 interceptions, one of them set the San Francisco up in beautiful field position. And it felt like to start this game, San Francisco was going to have a long night. And they did have a long night. They made Brock Purdy look like an average quarterback. They made him look like a Mr. Irrelevant. But that's because of how great they were able to capture. When is the last time you saw a defense able to stifle the 49ers pass game and run game? They didn't give up the easy, short little throws that's always there, the quick slants, the little quick throws that's always there for the 49ers. They didn't let Christian McCaffrey and them dudes gash them. Now, towards the end of the game, when they got tired in that fourth quarter, yeah, they started being more accessible to those things. But you can firmly put that on the offensive shoulders, really on everybody on the offense, not name anybody on that offensive line, and CeeDee Lamb. Because CeeDee Lamb is unbelievable. The catch that he made, and I talk about all season how the difference in receivers is the best type of receiver you want is when you look at the top receivers, they are hands catching receivers, meaning it's very few times you see them catch the ball with their body. They usually have their arms extended, catching the ball with their hands. Look at CeeDee Lamb catch that deep pass with his hands. He was interfered with, still caught it with his hands. That's how you know CeeDee Lamb is a dog. And I feel so bad for the offensive line for the Cowboys because this is probably one of the best games an offensive line has played against the San Francisco defense. They played a very great game. Dak had time. Dak's inability, I don't know if sometimes Dak see things that's not there, if he already have a pre-read in mind before he hiked the ball. But some of these interceptions and some of the places he go with these throws and some of his misses, it's just obviously it's heightened because of the game tonight, and this was such a big game, and basically your season end how it ended last year. But if Dak just have a decent, this is the problem with him. You had a game that you got last week against Tampa, but then you follow it up with this type of game. I expect that from Brock Purdy. I do not expect that from Dak Prescott, who done been in the game this long, that you shouldn't still be doing this. And to me, man, I don't think you get rid of Dak, but now you have to be asking yourself, what do we put around him to get us to that next level? Because if he's simply not going to be performing in these big games, it's Dak. What else can we do? Because you have the weapons. I understand this is not Cincinnati. No team in the NFL got the weapons that Cincinnati got. That is just a reality. They have 3 number 1 receivers running around the field with a number 1 running back and a great backup running back. Nobody got that type of weaponry. But you have more than enough talent to be successful with a Dak Prescott. One of the things that hurt him was Tony Pollard went down in this game. However, it was still enough plays there to be made that where Tony wouldn't have made that much, where losing him should not have made that big of a difference. This game kind of showed me why they ran first with Dak rather than having him be the thrower. Because there is just too many interceptions that is too hard to overcome in these type of games. You cannot have the 2 interceptions that he threw. 2 terrible interceptions. And he really could have thrown 4 interceptions in this game because 2 of the interceptions he threw got dropped. And I could be missing a couple others. But that's the thing. When you have a game like this where you threw 2, could have thrown 4 or more, that's a problem in this type of game with the talent that you have around you. Can't say CeeDee Lamb didn't show up. He did. Can't say the line didn't show up. They did. Can't say the running backs didn't show up. They did. Can't say the defense didn't show up. They did. So the only thing that we needed was for Dak to have a good game, and he didn't. And that, to me, was the difference in the game because Brock Purdy didn't play some great game. As a matter of fact, Brock Purdy became more effective when he settled down and just started doing the game plan. Just the throws that are supposed to be made, I'm going to hit the dude that's wide open. And that's how it played out. But for the Cowboys, you have to be going into the offseason saying to yourself, bro, what do we do to fix Dak? Because that is what we are. That is, unless we trying to go full run game, meaning we trying to go out and get a number 1 running back that could take even more pressure off of Dak, I don't know what you do at this point. It's easy to say go out and get another number 1 receiver. I don't think that's the case. He had CD and Amari at the same time. He got Amari and a great cast around him now. Dalton Schultz is a great weapon. I don't know necessarily. To me, this is simply going to come down to you need Dak Prescott to be more consistent. And I don't know if that means changing the entire offense back to a run first type of offense. Or I don't know if it means going out, getting him another weapon, even though I doubt that's the thing that you do to fix this. Because the defense can only play so great. Like, it's easy to say, well, the defense got to play great again next year. But it's going to always come down to your quarterback having to make plays. Simple as that. And if Dak Prescott cannot make the plays, I just don't see how you continue to go. Like, for one, you already paid him, so he ain't going nowhere right now. But let's say these opportunities don't come around all the time, especially when you don't have the type of talent on your team that Cincinnati got. When you have a team like Dallas that is littered with talent, but you still got all these other teams littered with talent in the NFC, like the Eagles, like the 49ers, and some teams that won't be as bad as they were this year. They'll rise back up next year. You can't believe that you'll be in this position every year, especially when Dak is not on the level of a Joe Burrow. So you can't expect to always be in these positions. But you have a team right now that's pretty expensive, and you don't know all these other contracts that's going to start coming up. How much more can you do to make this team better with Dak at the helm when the team played the way it did today and you still lose the game because of how Dak played? I'm not advocating for trading Dak, but what I am saying is Dak, you got to figure the Dak thing out. You got to get Dak to a level where this don't happen. Because he was the difference in this game, and you expect him to go out there. And this is why I picked the 49ers, because I said, well, if Dak go out and do what Dak should be capable of doing, you would take him to win this game. But I cannot trust that Dak is going to go out and be the quarterback that he's supposed to be. And that's exactly what happened. Purdy didn't even have to play a great game. And so, and the thing that's so disappointing when it comes to these Dak interceptions, the 49ers secondary is the worst part of their defense. But the interceptions came so easy to one of the outside corners. He threw it right to him because he throwing these routes that's so predictable, they just jumping them. And then the other interception came from Fred Warner, who played a phenomenal game. One of the best linebackers in the league. I think I got him as number 1 on my on Saints all first team NFL players, which a video will be coming out for that later on. But such a shame. They should have showed the Dallas fans in the crowd like they did last year, because this year might have been more disappointing than last year, because this Dallas team was better than Dallas last year. Dallas had a good team last year. This was a better Dallas team. All you literally needed was for Dak to play a good game. And it couldn't happen. But this is why I say the 49ers are a beatable team. It's just going to take that type of quarterback. Dak showed you tonight. This team can be beat. They can be stopped also. That's what the defense showed you. It's just going to take a quarterback good enough like a Pat Mahomes and the other great quarterbacks that's done beat him before to put that type of effort forward. But now we move over to the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. And listen, as much as I love Josh Allen, I knew this was going to happen, because as talented as, maybe I do just watch these games from a different angle, but I told you, I realized this a couple weeks ago. The Cincinnati Bengals, and I think I realized this during one of their losses. It could have been them coming off of a huge win off the back of a loss or a loss, and then I can't remember what, but I said this a couple weeks ago, like a month ago, probably even further back. Cincinnati is the best team in football. I don't know, not the best. I said they easily, to me, the most talented roster in football. Like, I understand all these other rosters and all the talent on these rosters, but the thing with Cincinnati is, while some teams could say we got more top level players on the defensive side of the ball, what most of them cannot say is, well, our defense done been together as long as some of these dudes on the Bengals defensive side of the ball. But they also cannot say, which no team in football could say, because you can still make arguments with the defensive side of the ball. What no team in football can do is say we got a better offensive receive the skill positions on offense, not including our line. Nobody in NFL is touching that. Not to mention we have a top 10 quarterback on our roster. So, and some people would say a top 5 quarterback. There's people out there who think Joe Burrow the best quarterback in football. When you have that, I just think it's so different than anything else. Because, and this is why I said it like a month ago. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase. All of those dudes is at least 6'1" or taller. All of them are number 1 receivers. I done watched Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins for a while, and I've been watching Jamar Chase since he touched the league because they play for the Bengals and my favorite team play in the division. When you have 3 number 1s that you can line up on a weekly basis and somebody have to defend that third one that's not a cornerback or not one of your top cornerbacks, that is tough to defend. When you put an offense in place that can help them, see, I don't even think the Bengals' offensive game plan is good. They don't run the ball for the most part, even though they ran the ball and got the Bills on up out of there today. But if they decided to, they would have success because they got Joe Mixon, one of the top 10 running backs in the football. Samaje Perine could probably be ranked as a top 20 running back in football, but definitely a top 5 backup running back in football. If not, he probably the best backup running back in football is between him and Kareem Hunt. Then you look at the fact that, oh, they got this bad offense. I don't care about that offensive line. You can scheme up ways around the offensive line. As bad as their offensive line is, I can attribute that to a lot of different things. It ain't always just them getting beat because they bad. It's sometimes they just hold the ball too long, Joe Burrow. Sometimes the offensive play call is not conducive to knowing you got a bad player playing that side of the line. That's just the reality of when you have 3 great receivers on your line. You drawing up plays to get them action, not worried too much about that offensive line. You figure Joe Burrow will make a way. When you look at 3 number, and see, this is what I don't think people understand. Having Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis is great, and Dawson Knox, because you got the number 1 along with a number 2, who I think really should be a number 3 or a slot. Even though Gabriel Davis, I'm not saying he a number 3 in talent. I'm just saying he's short, so I would probably be having him run. But he played great enough on the outside. Nonetheless, you got a number 1, a number 2, and a great tight end. You look at Cincinnati. You got a number 1, a number 1, a number 1, a good tight end, because I don't even think Hayden Hurst is that great. I think he looked better because he playing with 3 number 1 receivers. But then you look at some of these other teams. Miami, a number 1 receiver with a true number 2 and a good tight end, because I like Mike Gesicki. You look at the Chiefs. A great tight end, a generational quarterback, good receivers, that complementary receivers everywhere. Nobody can bring to the table what this Cincinnati Bengals offense can bring to the table. It's just, it is what it is. And I understand the media going to keep getting on TV talking about, oh, Joe Burrow's so great, Joe Burrow's so great. And I like Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is a good quarterback. I don't know how great Joe Burrow is because I've not seen Joe Burrow have to truly be great. He got 3 number 1 receivers, bruh. If you watch these games, he ain't throwing tight window throws all game like y'all try to make it seem like he doing. Dudes is running wide the fuck open. A lot of his throws is short throws that just go for a lot of yards because these dudes are phenomenal at running after the catch. All 3 of them for some reason. And the running backs. And when you have to defend those 3 receivers, when you have to commit what you have to commit to defending those 3 receivers, well, now Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon can go nuts. That's the problem with defending the Bengals. I don't know how great Joe Burrow is. I know he good. I know he great, because you could give a lot of quarterbacks this type of talent. I find it hard to believe that they would not make the playoffs a couple years, but I'm not saying they would make it to the Super Bowl and be as successful as Joe Burrow. However, it would be foolish for me to just sit here and act as if Joe Burrow is out here doing this shit with an average like what everybody else got, and meaning a number one receiver. Because if he just had one number one receiver, it'd be very easy for me to understand this. But it's hard to, bruh. If you never seen the Bengals, I get it. And if you're a Bengals fan, you gonna try to disagree and all that type of shit. But you know, when is the last time we seen an offense with 3 number one receivers running around the team? You can't name the last time we seen something like this. Like, this is actually insane. And so I truly don't know how. I know Joe Burrow is great. He would definitely be in my top 6 quarterbacks. But I'm not putting Joe Burrow over I'm not putting him over the 3 quarterbacks who I never put him over: Lamar, Pat, Josh. But I do think I probably have him as my 4th rating quarterback in the NFL. Even though I'm not comfortable with having him there, not because I don't think he's great, because I don't know how truly great he is. Because I can't remember the last time I seen a quarterback with this type of weaponry. Justin Herbert got 2 great weapons over there. I don't think Mike Williams is a number 1 receiver. Now, he could be number 1 receiver for a lot of different teams. I know Tyler Boyd would be a number 1 receiver for every team in the league that he played for. I know T. Higgins would be a number 1 receiver for every team in the league he played for. I know Jamar Chase would be a number 1 receiver. I know Mike Williams would be a number 1 receiver for a lot of teams, but I don't know if he would be a number 1 receiver for every team. T. Higgins and them boys can all run routes clean. They all get great separation. They all can catch with their hands. They all is great at breaking away. They all can go up the field. They all can catch after the run after the catch. None of them really. Now, I don't know how physical any of them are, because you never have to see that, because they all can take turns dominate. And if one of them had the hot hand, it's easy to keep going to him. And then when you don't have to go to him, it's easy to go away from him, because you got 2 other ones around. That's why when people was talking about, oh, Jamar Chase is hurt, that's going to change the offense. No, it won't. They still have T. Higgins and Boyd running around the field. So if you don't watch Cincinnati, or you just watch the TV people talk about, oh, all the white analysts basically boast up Joe Burrow, and people say, oh, well, you being racist, man. You got to bring the race into it. I look at Jalen Hurts have the season that he was having, and people tried to say, well, it's not really Jalen Hurts. Look at the weapons he got. At no point in time have I ever heard people say, well, it's not Joe Burrow. Look at the weapons he got. Because I would take his weaponry over the Eagles. Which, mind you, the Eagles is damn near close to having the same amount of talent. The difference, Devontae Smith, even though I love Devontae Smith, I'm not taking Devontae Smith over none of them 3 tall receivers for the Bengals. It just can't happen. Now, unless Devontae Smith break out like a Tyreek Hill and start having that type of, those type of years, because I think Devontae is a clean number 2. But I think Devontae could be a number 1 for another team. The problem is Devontae is very small. He got a small frame. He's not a 6-foot receiver. So I don't know if he could be a number 1 receiver for an entire year every year. Whereas A.J. Brown got the body, the build, Metcalf, the body, the build. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's easy not to look at Tyler Lockett as a number 1, even though he is, because he's not built like a DK. But when you look at that type of talent, I'm not taking nothing away from Joe Burrow. I just truly do not know how. Now, the game today, Allen didn't even turn the ball over a lot. But what you will find is this. When you match up against a defense like the Bengals, who maybe it's because I have to watch them 2 times, play my team twice a year, plus I got to watch them during other games because I have to pay attention to what's going on in our division. Maybe that's why I'm ahead of this. But I've been saying it for 2 years. The Bengals defense don't get nearly enough credit. Last year, I thought the Bengals got a lot of breaks go their way. A lot of breaks went their way. But in the midst of those breaks going that way, the defense was playing out of their fucking minds. And I understand what the offense was doing, but the defense was not getting enough credit. This year, the defense is pitching the same type of performance. They have literally had great games all year. They carried it into the playoffs. I don't think this is a juggernaut like Tony was talking about. I think the difference between this team is teams don't have to. A great quarterback eventually going to figure the defense out. That's not the problem. A great defense is going to be needed to slow down. And I'm starting to see how much better the Ravens defense is when they're healthy than I even realized. Because when you look at how the Bills just absolutely could not figure out how to stop this offense for the Bengals, and you look at how the healthy Ravens team was able to stop this team, maybe it come from playing them so much. I don't know, but it's night and day. I also think Tre'Davious White, giving him a full year back will probably help him. They did not have Micah Hyde. You got to still remember that. When the Bills have their 3 starting corners and they safeties healthy, that's a completely different secondary. But they didn't have that this game, so it's not surprising to me to see, even at home in a snowy game, it's tough to stop this type of offense. Not to mention the Bills got bit in the ass with the thing that they can't do. That I continue to tell people, while the Bengals choose not to do it, it's not because they can't do it. It's because we got 3 number 1 receivers. So why in the fuck would we just run around running the ball left and right? Joe Mixon can run. When they choose to let Joe Mixon run the ball, they usually have success doing it when they commit to it. The Bills are not a good run team even when they try to commit to it. The Bengals can run. When you have to worry about Joe Mixon, and now you got to also worry about them 3 receivers, it's no way in hell you beat this type of team, which brings me to my next thing. I'm not making my picks right now, but I'm basically making my picks. I don't know how Joe Burrow and these boys lose to Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes got a high ankle sprain. You will not beat the Cincinnati Bengals not being able to move around as a quarterback. On top of that, the defense for the Chiefs is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And so, as much as I like how they performed against Jacksonville, Jacksonville ain't Cincinnati. Cincinnati got too much talent littered throughout this team. Sorry. I just don't see it happening. Cincinnati is headed back to the Super Bowl. Lord knows I want my boy Pat, my GOAT, to get there. But with him being compromised and with that defense, with the Chiefs having to stop, and I understand it's in Kansas City, but it's just something, unless they can find a way. See, another problem that the Bills had is they got no pass rush when Von Miller is out. And I mentioned that a couple weeks ago, but when you can't consistently win on the pass rush, that's a problem. Look at why the Cowboys had success tonight. They got 2 legit. DeMarcus Lawrence made such a fucking play in this game. It was a play where they was about to run like a read option, right? And DeMarcus Lawrence was already headed up the field in that game. But when the running back had it going outward, DeMarcus, with a dude hanging on him, changed his route, dived for this dude's leg, and made the tackle. Bro, if he don't make that play, that's probably like a 10, 15-yard gain. DeMarcus Lawrence is a fucking stud. Deserve all the contract and the money he getting. He and Micah Parsons can change the game for you. Because you no longer had that for the Bills, you're not beating Cincinnati if you can't put no type of pressure on. It's just not going to happen. Because them 3 receivers going to get open. So if you cannot force them to hurry it up, it's no shot that you win that game. And if you only send them blitzes, you're definitely going to lose because they can get open quicker than most teams in the league because they have 3 dudes who are number 1s who know how to run these slants, who know how to run these crowded routes and get open and pop out open. Like it's just, and Joe Mixon can catch a little short. Now, I don't trust Joe Mixon catching passes as much as I do other running backs. Like he ain't an Austin Eckler or no shit like that, but he do his job. P-Ron do his job. So it's just hard for me to see, and I hope I'm wrong, but it is very hard for me to see. Now, this is what's interesting. Cincinnati could get to the Super Bowl because I just don't think it's a defense in the NFC left. I don't think the Chiefs defense, with Pat Mahomes being hurt or compromised, and with the defense for the Chiefs not being, to me, nowhere near as good as it need to be able to beat a team like this, I do think Cincinnati will win this game. However, I'm not picking them in the Super Bowl if they play against the Eagles because I do not think they are better than the Eagles. I do think the Eagles are the better team. The Eagles not only have a phenomenal pass rush, they have a phenomenal secondary, and they have enough players in the secondary to be able to match up with the Cincinnati Bengals. That's one of those rare cases where they thought ahead of time. It's almost as if they realized the team in the Super Bowl right now that probably could have won this game, the only reason they didn't was because of generational talent like Aaron Donald. But they got 3 number 1 receivers. We need to make sure we can combat that when we play them. So we going to get receivers, and we also going to apply the force on our defense. 70 plus something sacks this year. They had 15 plus more than the next team in the league. They can get after the quarterback. They can stop the run. They can stop the pass. The Eagles, to me, like I've been saying all year, are the best team in football and the best roster in football. And as long as Jalen Hurts do his job, which I believe he's going to do, because I love Jalen Hurts. Y'all know I've been on the Jalen Hurts bandwagon for 2 years. I'm not hopping off. They not going to give my boy no credit once he get this Super Bowl. Don't give a damn, because they not going to give Lamar Jackson no credit when he win the Super Bowl. Don't give a damn. The Eagles are the perfect team. Now, obviously, next week you got the Eagles taking on the 49ers, and I think the Eagles going to win that game also. So I'm not giving my picks away. I'm still going to do a pick show, but I'm just giving you a little bit of insight into what I'm thinking. Because when I look at the 49ers and the Eagles, both defenses can stop. Now, the 49ers and the Eagles, with the way they can pass rush, more so the Eagles, but the 49ers got one dude that's just a threat. The Eagles have a lot. It was 4 or 5 different dudes on their team had 10 plus sacks. That's a record, bro. That's insane. It's much like that Eagles team that won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, where they just kept changing in the defensive line because they had so many fresh bodies. Those two teams are a nightmare matchup for this type of Cincinnati offense, in my opinion. These are the two type of defenses that could really fuck the Cincinnati offense up. So were the Cowboys. That's the thing that they have. But see, I trust Jalen Hurts more than I trust Brock Purdy and Dak. But I trust Kyle Shanahan also. So I'm not mad at either team for getting there. However, I don't think Cincinnati is unbeatable either. I just think compared to the team, see, the AFC got a lot of offenses, quarterbacks. The defensive side of the ball, they're going to realize you're going to have to invest in, because it's no way you stop this Cincinnati team while they still had these 3 receivers without a legitimate defense. It's just no way. But with that being said, such a sad Sunday for so many teams, especially Cowboys fans, because you should have won that game. But Dak did not show up to win that game. And for that, I am sorry. But that is how the NFL season goes. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all for joining me on another episode of Kicking It with Saint. Tell somebody you fuck with them. Tell somebody you love them. You could be anything in the world. Choose to be kind to somebody today. Saint out.
Winning has a price. And leadership has a price. So I pulled people along when they didn't want to be pulled. I challenge people when they don't want to be challenged.
Yeah, I put my angel in the dirt and been on demon time. I'm sorry, mama, they keep playing with my peace of mind. Created niggas can't be threatened by no seed of mine. When the last time y'all see me with my feet reclined? Past like torturous, inner thoughts like a fortress. Biologically forfeited, bottled up. A nigga had to put a cork in it. Nigga thought he had one up on me, fucking unfortunate. Black magic, Harry Potter, that young source of shit. Good girl, so she claimed, do all sorts of shit. Neck like an ostrich, mouth taking all of my kids, look like an orphanage. I'ma be all up in her rears when them endorphins hit. I seen the ops out in traffic, that's ghost riding like E40. Way too focused on checks, I don't even see shorty. Whatever is for me, nigga, it's gon' be for me. You